Welcome, guys, to another Sandata interview. Today, I'm being joined by Adam Shah of Fnatic. You may know them as the team that just recently defeated Mineski, and actually, they've also defeated Fnatic to enter their first major of the 2017-2018 Pro season. Adam is all the way over in Malaysia. Adam, how are you?
I am good, thank you.
All right. I mean, you're looking good, man. How does it feel? How does it feel bagging two qualifiers immediately after joining?
It feels good, but I think ultimately to everyone on the team, the goal's not qualifying, but actually doing well in the event.
Right, definitely. I mean, we're going to get into a little bit more of how the team is doing, but I want to focus on you first. So, right before this, you were playing for other teams. Which
Mm-hmm.
team were you with before Fnatic?
Fire Dragoon.
Fire Dragoon. So, tell me, how did you make the journey from being an active player earlier in the season and now being a coach? How did that happen?
Mm, I think for me at the start of the year, I wanted to try playing in Malaysia. There weren't many good options. I think Fire Dragoon was the best option with Achit, who was in Fnatic last year. I played there for 3 or 4 months. It kind of felt uh, it felt very lackluster. I think there were many things that the team needed but didn't have. So I started to look for other options, and Eric approached me to well, if I'm interested to try out coaching with them. And from my point of view, I guess in a way, even though I still wanna play, like coaching them would help me relearn the things I might have lost while playing for a not so tier one team.
I see. So,
Yeah.
can you sort of elaborate on that? What are the things that were missing that you were looking for?
I think a lot of it is experience, maybe professionalism. I think a good captain. I actually blame myself for that. I think like I took on this task to lead Fire Dragoon, but I couldn't really do it. I
I,
think there were a lot of things that um stopped both me and my team from moving forward.
I see.
So it just ended up this way, I guess.
I see. So, Eric approached you, Eric Core, who is of course the manager of Fnatic. He approaches you, asks you to become a coach. What
He
did you
asked if I'm interested. Yeah.
Right? So how did you make the decision aside from thinking that this is something that an avenue for you to regain something that you lost? What ultimately made you choose to coach Fnatic?
I coached complexity before. Think I actually really enjoyed it. But I did still want to play. But I think I'm the type of person that um I need to believe in my team a lot to play with them. And so far I haven't been having any luck getting to a team like that. And I've worked with Ohio DJ Eric before. I know that it's not going to be a negative thing. It definitely be good for my career, good for myself to work with them again. I was also really interested to with Envy.
Right. So that's actually something that I kind of wanted to touch on. You see a lot of players, and Envy is a very polarizing figure, right? He's simultaneously he's obviously very learned in the game, right? But he also has, people joke about his ability to throw games and etc. So,
Yeah.
what was it about him specifically that interested you to sort of work with him as a player, not necessarily as a player, but as a coach?
I felt that he has a lot of ideas and concepts to the game that he's able to see things that a lot of players can't see, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I think what I saw the problem I kind of realized that the problem in the previous Fnatic was that their players weren't really on the same page in terms of what they wanted to do and how they wanted to play. And I think that that was one of the things that I managed to do as a coach in complexity. So I figured um that I wanted to try and help them out, and at the same time I would like to test myself to see if I'll actually be able to be a coach.
I see. So, we're going to go back to the subject of envy later on, but I kind of want to start talking about uh, the qualifiers that we've had, right? So you guys went from being invited to most qualifiers. I mean, Fnatic before you
Yep.
invited to most of the qualifiers in the region, and they would have great games. They would reach pretty deep in the playoffs of these qualifiers, but would have failed closing it out right before you.
Hmm.
What was your take just observing? You were with Fire Dragoon then. What do you think was the power balance in Southeast Asia before you entered Fnatic? Before you win
I
a bed?
think I think Mineski was top one, like uncontested. TNC was in a slump. Fnatic was, I would say, Fnatic was the only team that could beat Mineski at the time, but it was not consistent. Like
Right.
out of 10 games, they would be able to take games off Mineski.
I see. Why do you think that is? What do you think contributed to that sort of power dynamic in Southeast Asia? Um, was it the patch? Was it because we had a very long post TI patch before 7.07, right?
Mm, I think a big thing for I'm just guessing, like for Mineski it's like they formed this new roster, everyone's like super hyped to play. They have the fire, they everyone's trying hard. For TNC they've been together for a while. They stayed together after TI. I think you tend to get lazy regardless of how try hard you are,
Right. There's
it's
complacency,
different.
you mean?
Yeah. For Fnatic, I think they were trying really hard, but a lot of the things on the team were like left and right. A lot of players didn't really understand each other. Envy coming from the western scene and Ohio DJ being in the eastern region.
I see.
I think that team needed time as well, so there was a lot of inconsistency.
I see. So with after that, obviously, Fnatic needed that. They should have a change, right? So I think Envy in his sort of article on Monster Energy revealed that the first choice was always Abed, and so Abed
Uh-huh.
was brought in together with you. Since you've come in with Abed, how do you sort of see SEA's power balance now? Do you think Mineski is still 100% number one, or is there space at the top of SEA now? Is it more competitive from your perspective?
I would say us, TNC, and Mineski are top three hands down,
Right.
but I don't think there's a clear winner.
So there's no clear winner. It's not like
Yeah,
Mineski's still number one, even though they've been losing. There's no
yeah.
clear
I
winner
think
now.
I think now it's the point where Mineski is having a slump, and TNC and us have both like sort of woken up.
I see.
So everyone's like, yeah, there's much more of a balance between the three teams, I'd say.
I see. So from here, I want to sort of pick your brain on working with the players. So obviously, as a coach, can you sort of describe how you approach dealing with the players? Are you the kind of coach who's just heavily looking at the numbers? Are you the kind of coach who is sort of working on one-on-one basis with the players? Have you been approaching this with Fnatic?
I think the way the team works right now is that most of the replay watching sessions is mostly run by Envy. I think he does a real good job of it, so I stay out of that totally. I usually talk to like DJ Pi Ohio and I tell them like what item builds they can go to suit this playstyle more, or in this game why A is better than B, or to like remind them of words of what what's important in the game.
I see. So it's more of talking about win conditions, what's going on in context of the game, sort of that
Yeah,
approach.
I think I focus a lot more on small things,
I see.
like small details.
All right. So what I'm seeing here is that Envy is sort of the strategic leader, while you're more the tactical leader. Am I getting that correctly?
I wouldn't call myself a leader. It's more of like I'm just trying to like let's say Ohio's playing and I see this small thing, like after the game I'll like talk to him about it. I'll remind him. I'm like there's a lot of small details that everyone can improve on. And I think that's what I see clearly in every game,
I
and that's
see.
what I'm good at. But in like for Envy is really good at looking at the big picture, and I think he has a very unique way of how he wants the team to play. So I try not to step into that, and I try and help him do what he wants to do.
I see. So the reason why I ask, right, is because in past iterations of Fnatic, for example, in 2016, you came in mostly to fix the draft, right? That was sort of how people saw your commitment in when you replaced, well, when you stood in for net, and then eventually when the team sort of, um, when you sort of replaced net in 2016. At the time, I think people figured out, or I think it even came from Fnatic itself, that you were mostly there for the draft, and now you're mostly there for the little things, the little tweaks. Are you still helping out with the draft, or completely different dynamic?
I would say I help. I do help. I'm not sure how much I help, but I'm definitely there for the draft. Uh, the main thing I focus on is like patterns in between series.
I
Like
see.
there's always like, yeah, every best of three or best of five develop their own like
Small
uh
meta games, right?
yeah, like why did team A win the first game so hard and lose the second game
Right.
so hard? You know, that's like a key difference between game one and game two, and it's my job to kind of identify that for the team.
I see. Like, oh, I see. So what you're saying is like, for example, if it's a long best of five, you start to see like, oh, okay, this team values this sort of play style more, and if you can see that, well, maybe in game four you can answer that. That sort of pattern recognition is what you bring. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah,
I see.
sort of.
So now, from other talking to other coaches in the scene, even Fnatic's former coach, ADTR, if I'm not mistaken. I said ADTR, or is it Bone? I'm not sure. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
ADTR now.
right. So for ADTR, for example, what he said was that his role was mostly to sort of deal with player egos. He was there, like I think he mentioned that he was there mostly to guide the team in sort of a life coach kind of way. Um, do you also provide that? Like you also talk to people, sort of get morale up, because that's also a very important function for someone who's
I
coaching.
think the most amazing thing about this team is like they don't take losses in any negative way. Like loss means nothing. They'll just talk about what went wrong and they'll move on. So I don't feel the need to boost their morale has not arisen to me.
I see.
Yeah.
Right. I guess there are some teams who tilt, the moment they lose, and it's a downward spiral. So you feel like for this team, that's not the main issue
Yeah,
that you help
I
with.
don't feel like the players give up easily or anything. It's more of they wanna identify the problem, and I think that's where am able to help a lot in terms of heroes.
I see. All right then. So, I mean, that's great. I think you've given a pretty clear window into how different coaching styles work, especially in the context of Fnatic. What I want to ask you now is just going back to what I alluded to earlier, working with Eternal Envy. So you mentioned that working with Envy was something that greatly interested you because he's someone who has a very unique point of view when it comes
Yeah.
to the game of Dota. He wrote something for Monster Energy lately, and I think one of the main bullet points there is that he felt a little bit burned out from competitive Dota, but when he played with Excalibur, your former mid player, it sort of reinvigorated. Could you? Is that something that you've seen as well? Like,
I think it's very common. Like I think it's hard for anyone to play Dota like the whole year and not get exhausted. But when the people around you are trying very hard, you kind of get into the mood to try hard as well.
I see, and it's a very important boost. So, how has it been playing with Envy, knowing that he's from another region? Is there any difficulty at all? Is there communication problems? What's it like?
Uh, I mean, in terms of language, I think maybe like there are terms he uses in English where like me, I'm an English speaker, so it's common to me, you know. But like for someone like Ohio, like these weird terms that aren't usually used here are a bit hard to decipher.
Give me an example. Like, give me an example. Like,
Damn, give me a while.
because I know, for example, for Filipinos, right? They just
Yeah,
spam, like they just say back, 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 go, 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 or some mix of Tagalog, right? But
yeah. I think they are just you know it's just English. Like there are words that sometimes could be misunderstood if you're not too fluent in the language, like just the way you sentence it or something.
Right,
Can't
right,
really think of an example right now.
right. Maybe there's some form of slang that he might use, and then
Yeah,
okay, all right. So I mean that's EE as an English speaker, but working with him as the team leader because the kind of picture that people have about Eternal Envy is that oh he's pretty intense, right? He has to have things his own way. But what is he actually like as a
I
player?
think Envy's an amazing captain. I think there's a lot of things that he helps everyone with. He really puts in a lot of effort. We qualified for Dream League, and the next day he's in front of the PC at 9 a.m. looking at the replay and writing notes for his team to on what's wrong and what's right. Like
Right. Even
I
if you
think
won,
it's
even if you won, he's
yeah,
still doing
yes,
that.
yes. I'm sure the whole team's really working hard right now. Like they qualified for a summit, and the first thing they talked about after the win, they like got up, high fived each other, then they sat back down and started talking about heroes because of the patch. Like what heroes
That
can be played and
so
what can be
no
not.
no I know no time for you guys to even just lose yourselves in the celebration. It's just work
I mean they
repeatedly.
do for like a minute or two, and then like it comes and goes again. But I think it's really good that everyone in the teams really try hard, and everyone has the initiative to pull their teammates into this hardworking environment.
I see. So I mean, it's interesting to hear that from someone who's worked with Envy because again, the sort of idea that people get is just from Envy when he rants and so it you kind of have an idea of Envy as a player from that way. Another thing that I kind of wanted to ask you for verification is um, you know, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, right? Like you
Yeah,
have a lot of Envy fans, but at the same time, a lot of people who keep saying, "Oh, you should remove Envy because he throws games, etc., etc." He wrote something on Monster Energy about that, but I kind of
yeah.
wanted to get your take on it.
I mean, um, I would say he throws games. I mean, people make mistakes here and there. I think everyone does. Sometimes it's just that I would say Envy's when he makes these mistakes, it's more how do I put it? It looks brighter than the rest, like it sticks out.
Right, right,
Like he plays this Legion commander and his endgame he has some like Aether lens, because he's having that kind of game, But ultimately he's doing what he believes is the best for the game, and he's trying to win the most. And if it works out, he looks like a genius, and if it doesn't, he looks like a
right. I think
gimme,
there's a mini game, right? There's a mini game. It's
Yeah, there
the
is, but
Guess the Hero Eternal Envy edition.
yeah, but ultimately, he's doing what he thinks is best for a game, and I think a lot of players are not able to see it. But when it works out, I think it's
It
really
really
game
works
winning.
out, right? It really
Yeah, it does.
right. So it's because the thing that he wrote was that he isn't actually a high risk, high reward kind of person.
Yeah, I don't think he is. He'll only take like risks if he feels it's necessary to win the game, and I think that's what anyone who's playing to win would do.
Right. But then I guess because of Envy's sort of status as a player, that's what people remember. The games where
Yeah,
he's back against the wall, he tries to go for something strange, and he
yeah,
fails. I see. I see. So I'm happy that it's something that we could shed some light on because Eternal Envy is a very again very polarizing player. Not a lot of player can, or not a lot of, especially the fans and the audience can have an inside look. So it's great that you can give that. But for now, I want to transition to your other new edition, which is
hmm
Abed. And I gotta say, Abed has been phenomenal. I think upon joining you guys, you are averaging what 2 clips a game of Abed's plays.
yeah,
What's it
probably.
like playing with Abed?
I think I mean like it's just I think compared to other mid players that we've had before, Abed's a real boost in skill. He's a player that uh, he just understands the game very well. Like when we look at replays and stuff, we don't really need to look at his movement because he's doing the right thing. Like he just has that natural game instinct. And it's really something. It's really a one in a million kind of thing.
Right. So talking to you as a coach, right? I know for a fact because I've personally observed Abed back when he was playing here in the Philippines. I've also observed DJ, for example,
hmm
back when he was playing here in the Philippines. Even when he was playing abroad for Rave, I know that these two players are pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Um, how is that like for someone like you? You know, you mentioned that you're the kind of coach who looks at the little things, and communication is one of those things. Has has the communication been good with Abed?
Yeah, actually, I was surprised. I expected him to be much more quieter because when I coached DC, he was part of it and he didn't talk as much. I think he talks more now. I think it's not really about how much he talks, but what he says is really crucial to the game. If it is important, he will say something. And I think that's the requirement.
For you, as a coach of Fnatic, I know that as a coach, you would have your own sort of personal goals. What's your personal goal for the team moving forward? Like we could go short term, we could go long term.
Short term, I'd say I want them to do well at Lens. I want us to learn from Lens. I think that's the biggest key right now. Like for us, the first step was obviously qualifying, and now we know we're going to play against much stronger opponents at Dream League, which is a major at Summit. It's gonna be much tougher, and there'll be much more to learn since there's a new patch. Um, a lot of teams have different ideas, and we are gonna go there and absorb everything, and hopefully come back a better team.
So, is anyone? Are you worried about any team in the summit? Let's focus on the summit first because they've released the entire list.
Uh,
EG is also there.
I
VP is
think I
there.
think I think the only team I'm worried about right now is Fnatic.
Oh, it's Fnatic. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Oh, that's
I,
a
I
pretty
think
good.
we're our own worst enemy.
Right. That's a pretty good, very democratic answer. Yeah. Very safe, but also
Never
very
wrong
Adam.
answer.
Yeah. It is all. It's a very safe, but also very Adam kind of answer, right? So, how about long term? What is Adam's long term goal with Fnatic? Do you see yourself as taking coaching long term?
I'm not sure actually. I definitely like to play. I'm trying to come to peace with myself about this coaching thing. I do think I can be a good coach, but there are also parts where you just have to accept that you're not in control of what happens in the games. And even though you tell your team like, hey, they ward here, like your team might not reward it, and like you can't do anything about it, because you're not part of the game. I still see myself being able to play. I do want to play, but I think I've I've moved around between teams a lot, even though I don't really want to. Like I don't really. It's been a while since I've been on a team that I thought could work. So unless I get that opportunity, I would definitely continue coaching.
So, I think last question for me is there a coach right now that you're looking at and saying that this is your kind of role model or kind of a rival in terms of coaching? I know, for example, fucking Matt is a well, I already said it. Fucking Matt is a
Uh,
kind of coach who's like a player, was a player before, obviously
yeah.
very high level.
Uh, I think Hin, Matt, and Kips all bring like unique things to the table. But what I understand of coaching ultimately is it's between you and your team. You
Right.
can be the best coach, but if your team doesn't want you to do what you're good at, then it just doesn't work. Ultimately, every team requires a different thing. It's like having different kids. You can't do the same thing with every kid. So it depends what your team needs, and I think like that's the kind of coach I am. Like I get to I understand my players more, and I find it easier to talk to them. I think it's also easy for players to talk to me,
All right. Well,
so I'll stick with my strengths.
so I mean, thank you very much for the time, Adam. You've been a great guest for this interview series. Well, we wish you luck for your two events, the Summit 8 coming up this December, and of course the major for next year, which is Dream League Season 8. So that's Adam Shaw, Fnatic coach of Fnatic, newly added coach of Fnatic, joining us here for interview for Wombo Combo. This has been Pau. We'll see you guys next time for another round of interviews. So, thank you for joining us. All
Thank you.
right.